but he's only one person, for those of you who might have been confused. Glad that you're here. Welcome to this third Sunday of Pentecost and Pride Sunday. We are pleased to be the host for the Pride picnic this year. We're hoping, have our fingers crossed and our toes crossed, that the rain will hold off enough to hold most of it outside. But we're so glad that you've joined us today. You are fully welcome here, whoever you are and however you found your way here. And not only those who are present, but those who are joining us virtually as well. However it is that you have found your way to this place, we are glad that you are here. Glad that you found us, wherever you may be tuning in from. We are more than affirming, more than welcoming. Today, we're celebrating. Glad that you've joined us for it, the celebration. I want to begin with the Robbie Stone Advocate for Justice Legacy Award, something that we started last year in 2021 and is presented annually during the month of June. It's named for Robbie E. Stone, or Robbie as we knew him, who was born June 17th, 1954, and died June 2020. It is in memory of his dedication to community service and advocacy for justice. Robbie was a leader in all three of the churches, which eventually merged to form this church, Unity Fellowship. He was also deeply involved in the community at large and was a champion for diversity, inclusion, and justice. We are proud to announce this year's honorees, Roy and Gail Hayden. I'm going to ask that you all make your way to the front here as I finish about you a little bit. I'm cutting in and out here. Just a few words about Roy and Gail. They have been tireless church leaders and pillars of this church, which has gone through numerous transitions. Their choice as this year's recipients speaks to the adaptability, progress, and renewal that is required in order for a church to meet the constantly changing needs of people in a perpetually evolving world. Roy and Gail have served in a variety of leadership roles for years, providing faithful guidance to their church as Sunday school director, clerk, vacation Bible school director, and treasurer, and many others. That's just a few. As well as both of them at one time or another being selected to chair the deacon body. Gail, additionally, as far as I know, has the distinction of the first female deacon in Davis County. Their service to others has always been a consistent heartbeat. At any given time, they may be seen sorting goods for the clothes closet, serving meals in the soup kitchen, or organizing and volunteering in community work days. They have exemplified what it means to be humble servants of God. Roy and Gail remain steadfast in their commitment to their church, even while many of their friends abandoned it over controversial issues, most notably when the Davis McLean Baptist Association, led by members of their own family, by the way, first demanded that we must immediately disassociate our affiliation with PFLAG and must no longer allow the group to meet in our building. That's a quote, by the way. Roy and Gail Sturm, they were both signatories on our church's response letter to the Davis McLean Association, which read in part that our church has purposed to practice radical, unconditional acceptance. Not only are gays and lesbians welcome, but anyone who has ever been alienated, shunned, hurt, judged, or marginalized in society at church. And that we will seek to exercise no circles of exclusion, observe no boundaries to fellowship, and entertain no loyalties above our own loyalty to God. In the end, the association did exactly what they had threatened. They ended the 100-year-plus relationship and disfellowshipped our church from the association. Roy and Gail were undaunted. They continued to provide enduring reassurance and encouragement to the now dwindling congregation. While not activists, technically, they provided a quiet leadership and undying support through all of these trying times that allowed this church to take bold stands in its quest to be a more inclusive and bring about a more loving world. I personally have very little doubt that would have happened without your support. It would have been quite different without their courageous leadership. It is my great honor to have been their pastor these many years, and it is with great delight that I present this award to them. They have created their own significant legacy in empowering this church to be an advocate for justice. This is the plaque that you can hang in your own home, and your names have been added to the plaque that will hang here at the church.
Thank you very much. I'm not for sure that we need all of this because we don't do that much. We just do what we think we have to do. And when you told me that we was going to have something today, wanted us to be here, last Sunday, Gator asked that somebody send us $1 million check and make sure that they sign it. So I thought today, I said, well, that's when they're going to bring that $1 million check here.
Sorry to let you down, Lord.
So he let me down. Anyway, thank y'all for appreciating. We appreciate it, and thank you for honoring us in this way. We just do what the Lord wants us to do and what we think we needed to do, and that's all. That's all you can do is just what you think. The way the Lord leads you to be. What you be.
And that's exactly why we chose you. Thank you. You can go back and be seated now if you'd like. Thank you so much. We did get a check, by the way, but it didn't have quite that many zeros on it. We have been doing a highlight every Sunday this year, highlighting one saint, one advocate, one person who has stood out. And on this particular Sunday, being Pride Sunday, I've chosen Marsha P. Johnson, an African-American transgender woman, an LGBTQ rights activist, and an outspoken advocate for trans people of color. Was born Malcolm Michaels Jr. on August the 24th, 1945 in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Johnson experienced a very difficult childhood, as many in the LGBTQ community do, because she grew up in a Christian home that was not accepting. She engaged in cross-dressing behavior at an early age, but was quickly reprimanded. She then moved to Greenwich Village in New York City after graduating from high school. She struggled greatly in New York City after high school, often homeless, battling mental illness, numerous police encounters, living on the street. Yet she found joy as a drag queen amidst the nightlife of Christopher Street. Johnson designed all of her own costumes, mostly from thrift shops. She quickly became a prominent figure in the LGBTQ community, serving as drag mother by helping homeless, struggling LGBTQ youth. An eccentric woman known for her outlandish hats and glamorous jewelry, which you can see in the picture. She was fearless and bold. Whenever she was asked what the P stood for in her name, as people pried about her gender or spiritual or her sexuality, she quipped, "It means pay it no mind." Her forthright nature and enduring strength led her to speak out against injustices against every community. On June the 28th, 1969, at the Stonewall Inn on Christopher Street, which was the hub of the New York City gay community in the 60s, things turned violent after a few of the LGBTQ folks were arrested on very questionable charges, handcuffed, and very publicly forced into police cars in the streets of New York City. The LGBTQ community was fed up with being targeted because they had been a target for many years at this point. And we're seeing these public arrests incited them to riot, which lasted for several days. These events have been collectively described as a riot, a rebellion, a protest, or an uprising. Whatever the label, it was certainly a watershed moment in the LGBTQ history. Many eyewitnesses have identified Marsha P. Johnson as one of the main instigators of the uprising. Sadly, at the age of 46 and on July the 6th, 1992, her body was found in the Hudson River, and the police ruled that it was a suicide, despite claims of her friends that she was not suicidal. It was several years later, 25 years later, as a matter of fact, that New York City finally reopened the case to look at it again. In 2019, however, New York City announced that Marsha P. Johnson, along with others, would be the subject of a monument commissioned by the Public Arts Committee. She built New York City. The monument will be the first in New York City to honor a transgender woman. And in 2020, New York State named a waterfront in Brooklyn after her name. She has been the subject of many documentaries and remains one of the most recognized and admired LGBTQ plus advocates to this day. Very quickly, any news, joys, and concerns that you have, we're going to try to move on to our dialogue section as quickly as possible. So if you have news, joys, or concerns, make them as quick as you can, as brief as possible, so that we can move quite along. Anyone?
I have a large joy today. My whole family is at my house. Both of my children and their significant others and their children and even my daughter's dog. And it's chaos.
The whole family, even the dog. Yeah, right.
She's here today. Yeah. My niece, her husband, Mike English, suddenly passed away Monday, and they had his funeral Saturday, so we wanted to remember that family. He's just 61 years old and so young to pass away, you know. The family will surely miss him, you know.
Right. Thank you, Roy. Anyone else? Anyone online? Did you see any comments online?
I want to thank the church for letting me come in and be a part of this family. I want to thank the joy that I have felt throughout my job and the people that care for me, no matter if I'm straight, gay, bi, transgender, or whatever. If you know of anybody that is struggling with that in their job, tell them to fight for it, injustice. Myers is one place that I felt like family in a job site. And I thank God for letting me see that through my new welcome family and my new church family here that welcomed me last week into the house here as their new family.
Thank you. And we're glad that you're here, a part of this family as well.
I just wanted to raise a prayer for all the women who this week lost constitutional rights. And I just want us to remember them in our prayers and ask that God walk with them in the coming years in the midst of this great loss.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that. And would you lead our prayer, please?
Would you bow with me? Oh, Creator, we thank you this Sunday morning. We've come in 2022 to celebrate Pride. It's really not so much a celebration as it is an acknowledgement of the diversity you create. We ask that you be with those who have prayer concerns, who've gone unspoken. Walk with them and guide them and lead them in your way, Lord. We thank you for the good things that are happening and for the praises that were raised this morning. We ask that you give us a moment in time today to celebrate the incredible diversity and inclusive love that is you. And we give you praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I'm going to ask those of you who are present to stand with us for our affirmation of oneness. This is something we say every Sunday. If you're joining us online, you may remain seated, but we ask you to say it with us, at least silently, if you would, please. We gather in oneness together. We praise and worship God together. We proclaim God together. We welcome and affirm all persons in God's love together. And we seek to live for God in every breath and heartbeat together. Thank you. Be seated. If you have not been added to our contact list, I invite you to do so. Please text the word ADD, A-D-D, to 270-201-5022. The word ADD, A-D-D, to 270-201-5022. That will add you to our contact list every Sunday morning about 8:40 or so. You'll get a message telling you what the topic for the Sunday is, as well as a link to our Zoom, and you can join us there or here, either one. We are still following the protocol of COVID. Can't believe 2 years later we're still doing this. But it's very convenient. If you would like to make your gift to the church, you can click on the Donate Now button, which is on our Facebook page or on our web page. And it'll walk you through the process of making a gift. I would encourage you to make it a recurring gift because our bills, like yours, don't stop. You can also go old school and send it in the mail, P.O. Box 1401. Or if you happen to be present and would like to, you can drop it at one of the offering plates, which is each door as you leave. Having said all of that, we are here to talk about pride and prejudice today. This is a dialogue. We want the two of us, Pastor G and I, are going to be discussing it together. But we invite you to be a participant in this discussion. So if you've got questions, if you've got comments, you've got a thought, you want to press some particular point, then let us know. If you're here present, wave a hand. If you're online, either on Facebook or on Zoom, you can join us there as well. You can use the chat section, and someone will read it. Zoom folks can also unmute and speak if you'd like to be a part of this conversation. But the title for today was chosen by Pastor G, so I'm going to let you how you came about coming up with that title first.
Well, yeah, briefly, we talk about Pride Sunday, and for many of you in the LGBTQ plus community, you know that June is Pride Month, right? And different communities throughout the United States celebrate on different weekends, but some don't even celebrate during this month. They wait because it's too hot and have it in the fall and the winter. But pride in who you are has often been stolen from us, a sense of pride, and replaced with a sense of shame. Some of us spend most of our lives trying to stamp out. And so in these two hands that we have, we carry pride for who we are, not just our sexuality, our gender identity, but for who we were created to be. And on that other hand, we carry the prejudice that is always present in our country, in our states, our cities, and unfortunately in too many faith communities. And so I thought today we would frame it that way. Pride and prejudice. One will overcome the other. We may not live to see that day, but it will happen.
Thank you. Thank you. Comments, questions out here. I want to make sure that you are involved as well. We are claiming together. That's what we do as a community. We don't have all the answers.
Nope.
We do have a lot of the questions.
We do have that.
Let's talk dig a little bit deeper on this question of shame, because that seems to be where a lot of the prejudice comes from, or at least what stokes the prejudice, at least, is that sense of shame that, unfortunately, I think very many faith communities bring to this question.
Right. So when we talk about shame, that's not just an LGBTQ plus emotion, is it?
Right.
That's, every one of us can identify with that. When we're talking about it in the LGBTQ plus conversation, we're talking about something that's been deeply indoctrinated. And when I say indoctrinated, I mean repeatedly served to a person who's LGBTQ plus. Even when they're not out yet or whatever, they're surrounded by this doctrine that says homosexuality, transgender folk, anything that's not straight, white, and evangelical is considered unbiblical. And for many of us, we heard those individuals were bound to hell. And so that sense of shame, even if you knew this is who I am, you still carry this shame in you. And you struggle, many people struggle with praying for the Creator or God or whoever, however you refer to them, to remove this from you. And that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen because it wasn't meant to happen. And so many of us, those of you who've even come today, have experienced a point in your life where you said, I'm going to deal with this shame and be who I am. And I'm going to let the chips fall where they may. And that's an incredibly scary thing to do. Because what? You risk your job, you risk your family, your friends, your home. And there's much, much more. And so when we talk about that shame, I just want people to recognize that in my understanding, that shame is not a God-given shame. That is a shame perpetuated by humanity under a homophobic doctrine of theology. Remember, theology is our study of God. So if I'm raised to believe God hates homosexuals, then how am I going to treat homosexuals? Do you see what I'm saying? But if I meet a new theology, like a theology that Bob has preached, then all of a sudden I begin to think, well, wait a minute. maybe it's the people who told me God hated me that were wrong. And so shame is something that hopefully we will be able to work through the years. It's not a flip the switch and it's gone. There's times I still walk into situations and places and I am nervous to be who I am.
Yeah.
So,
Shame never really goes away, does it? Yeah. That's something that you just carry in your bones, it seems like to me. We've got a lot of work to do to try to undo all the damage that's been done by placing shame on people's shoulders and something that they carry a wound their entire lives. Yeah, I'm not real sure. We're having microphone problems. I think this is about the fourth microphone I've tried to use this morning.
and the sad thing, Bob, is, I'll add to that, is that the shame prohibits us, and when I use us, I'm talking about the family, LGBTQ+, from having healthy relationships,
Yeah.
intimate relationships, because we're carrying this baggage of shame, and it gets in the way of us simply loving another person.
Yeah.
Because we feel, what? Inadequate. We're not enough. We're constantly feeling like we have to prove our worth in spite of who we really are. And so shame is much more than an emotion. It can absolutely freeze you in a time and place and make it impossible for you to move forward in a healthy way.
Yeah. I just looked to see if there was a comment on Facebook. I'm looking out. Anybody have a comment or question?
You did forget to mention church was another one, which a lot of people, are thrown out of church once they come out.
Mm-hmm.
And we have these great self-righteous people that they love everybody but,
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. Very good point. Thank you, Becky. Anyone else out here in the audience? Anyone on Zoom have a question, a comment?
Please speak up and engage.
We want you to be a part of this conversation. Okay, well, let me do a little theology for a moment. I am convinced personally, my reading of the scripture and reading of who Jesus was constantly undermining the shame that the church of his day laid on people. He was there to take that burden off. Come unto me, all those who are burdened and heavy laden. Those are the words of Jesus, who wanted to take that burden, that wound away from folks. And Jesus' first words to a lot of folks, not because they were doing anything wrong, but his first words were, "You're forgiven." Because they're carrying this load of guilt, not because they were engaged in anything, just that he wanted to lift that load off of them. That forgiveness, that grace, that acceptance by God is what Jesus demonstrated and spoke about constantly. So, given that, how can the church relieve that burden, that wound? What's the church's role in going against all the shame, the damage that we've already done? What do we do? How can we reverse that or do anything to begin reversing that?
That's a profound question. And I think, unfortunately, churches that have taken that on have taken huge losses in the numbers of their congregation, in their finances, and in the life of their church. I recognize that. And in the same breath, I also recognize how profound it is for a church, majority led by straight clergy, to welcome and affirm LGBTQ people in this day and this time. And I think that starts with individuals. Okay, it starts with getting to know individuals who happen to be gay, bi, straight, transgender, plus. Knowing them as people and not us and them. And then it goes further, which a lot of churches hesitate to do. You got to be public about it.
Yeah.
You got to be public, because if
I have a friend who likes to say, if you're going to help people who smoke, you got to sit in the smoking section. And I think that's the same thing here. You got to hang with people that you want to have some influence.
That's it. And you don't enter into that seeking to change somebody.
Right.
You enter into it seeking to know and understand them. And that's a big shift in the way church is done. And being public, while it may be putting something on your sign out front, on your website, it's essential, because you're dealing with a people who've been so wounded by the church. Now, they're covered in scars. If you don't make it public, they're not going to drive by and park and come in your place. Why would they?
Yeah.
So being public about it is not showboating your church. It's a necessary witness of inclusive love that must take place. And then I'll go further. You better start putting some LGBTQ plus clergy in place. You better start doing that, or your witness for Africa is shallow. And many churches who consider themselves forward or woke have no staff that is not cisgender or straight.
Yeah.
And so there's steps you can take. And I don't know if anybody online has additional comments or people here in person, but for a church to come out as welcoming, you're really taking up that cross. It's not going to be easy. Ellen DeGeneres is not going to write you a $20 million check and pat you on the back. It's not like that. It's going to really show you what early Christianity was like. Intimate congregations of people going against the stream in the name of love. So that's kind of my reflection on that, Bob.
Jesus wasn't quite about who people that he hung out with was. He didn't do it behind the scenes.
Right.
He was very public about the people that he hung out with. Jesus sat in the smoking section, in other words. He had sex workers in his group of followers. He was very public, very acknowledged, so much so that, and the scripture says that Jesus ate and drank with sinners. Understand that wasn't the word that Jesus used for the people that he hung out with. That's the word that other people, that was meant to be a criticism of Jesus, was that he ate and drank with sinners. But Jesus did not consider them sinners. Jesus considered them humans.
That's right. That's right.
And Gator, like you said, it's hard to come out and be in support. I know several people that support me and Alan in private, but they won't in public because they're afraid of the ridicule. Right. They're afraid of the hardship that they will endure. And I think that's one thing about Unity and Pastor Bob is basically we don't care what other people think because you're who you are and you're accepted and you're loved. And it's not been an easy road for Pastor Bob. It's not been an easy road for the church. But who said it's supposed to be easy?
Right.
Yeah. Following Jesus was never supposed to be easy. Even Jesus said it's the hard way. It's the narrow way that we follow when we follow Jesus. There's a moment in this church's history that has stuck with me always. there was a moment when we made the decision to reply to the Dayton Association when they demanded that we get rid of PFLAG and not let them our building. And not only did we say no to their request, demand, but we also said, well, just so you know who we are, we're not excluding anybody for any reason. So we made it very clear what our stance was. And so that letter was drafted. The deacons all signed the letter. It was read one Sunday morning to the congregation that was there at the time. And there was this spontaneous moment after that letter was read where everybody, every single person in the congregation that day stood up and just came forward as an act, as a moment of solidarity with the stand that we were taking. That moment stands in my mind. But there was a moment after that, after we got kicked out of the association, when it became public knowledge. It hit the newspapers, and everybody knew where we stood, that the numbers people started going out the door. So as long as they were within this small congregation of people, and there was maybe a little bit of peer pressure to be in support of that, when they had to go home and eat lunch with their family or go to work and eat lunch with coworkers or whatever it was, they decided that they couldn't be public about it.
That's right.
That's
right. And I think it's very reminiscent of the 1940s, 50s, and 60s during the civil rights movement, when certain white people made up their minds that they were going to, and in supporting it, they were shunned by the entire community, and even had violence acted out toward them.
Yeah, right.
We ain't come that far, folks,
No.
from those days.
Well,
So-
and we're turning a corner back the other direction.
Well, we aren't. Some other of us are. I ain't going back.
Collectively,
Right.
this nation is.
I know, you're right. But just the realization that it's not, sometimes, this is me talking. I don't speak for every gay, lesbian person.
You don't?
No. We should have put that on the board out there this morning. For me, I think pride's great. But I think at times it gives a false sense of where we are as a community. That because people see gay characters on TV, because they see them in movies, because they see a parade and people are wearing, feather boas and rainbows everywhere, well, they've got what they need, right? Look, they're happy. They're not being discriminated against. They're making millions making these movies and on television shows, and it gives a false sense of equality. And that's why I really want to remind people this morning about Marsha P. Johnson. Pride is still an act of rioting.
Yeah.
It's an act of defiance. Not to provoke violence, but to provoke in ourselves a sense of pride that rises up and breaks through the shame. We're protesting our own indoctrination. Many of us are still doing it. And so when you see the parades, I want people to understand the parade is not to wave it in anybody's face, but to say we have survived. We haven't gone anywhere. And we still celebrate ourselves, not to convince anybody on the street to join us, but it's so much about who we are and what we believe about ourselves. There's an intimacy to Pride celebration that I think people miss sometimes. And thankfully, this church in Owensboro, Kentucky, has said this day is sacred. And Daniel, I know you understand, and those of you in here who identify as part of the family, you don't know, those of you who are in here who don't identify as LGBTQ+, how profound what you're doing is. You don't realize it. The incredible pain is we come through those doors and we come in here and make ourselves vulnerable, and you love us. It sounds simple, but it's revolutionary. It's as revolutionary as when Jesus walked into Samaria instead of going around like every other Jew.
Yeah.
He went straight in because why? He had to make a point. And you have chosen to go straight in to the LGBT community, while other congregations in this town, this nation, this world have chosen to go around. You've gone in, and you've met us at the well at noon, and we've come with our shame from our past, and you've asked us as Jesus, who are you? And invited us to talk about that pain. Bring me water. And Jesus, that was his invitation to her. It wasn't a command. And she opened up to him, and we've opened up to you. So this morning, I'm not trying to preach. I want to say thank you. To those of you in this congregation, to those of you who are listening, to those of you who are, thank you for being Christ to us. That love can never be earned. It's freely given, and you do that. So I'm saying I'm very grateful this morning. Bob.
And thank you, Gator, for that. I want to change gear just a little bit and talk about the exploitation of pride. The companies that jump on board with it, even the churches that jump on board with pride during Pride, but are nowhere to be found the rest of the year. You want to talk just a little bit about that? Maybe somebody else has a comment or a thought. I'm looking out here while you're talking and see if there's somebody else that wants to say something. But
Sure. Well, we've seen this with not just Pride, but with other minority events. Companies will come in and they can make money off trinkets to sell, but then they leave that group high and dry at the end of Sunday on that weekend, right? And so this exploitation is nothing new. I'll be honest, I don't think the majority of LGBTQ people really stop to think about it. They see these vendors pushing these carts with these rainbows and the flags and all that, and they think, oh, great, it's something else I can get. But they're not realizing that many of those are just buzzards on a fence post. They're there to pick off a little meat, and then they'll fly off. Now, that doesn't mean we stop the parade around a cart and we say, the rest of, for 20 years now, you're not going to up and leave us. It's not it. But it's being aware of how we're taken advantage of. How many of those vendors are run by LGBTQ individuals?
Yeah.
Do you know that? I don't. How many of those companies continue to invest in the LGBTQ equality after Pride Month?
It's called Google, somebody said.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Google
Google
it.
it. Yeah, find out.
Right? But too many of us, and you may get angry at me for saying this, too many of us are so wrapped up in celebrating that we don't realize the struggle's still present. Other minorities, African Americans, they're thinking strategically about who comes to their events. They're making sure they invite black-owned businesses.
Right.
We don't do that. We've got work to do. Doesn't mean we exclude straight vendors, but we need to be overtly conscious of who's selling us these products. Where is the money we make going?
Yeah.
And everybody wants to say, oh, it's not all about money. A great deal of it is about money.
Yeah.
Okay? It's greed. And I still, and if you go to Chick-fil-A, don't get mad, but I still see my brothers and sisters and family going to Chick-fil-A. Chicken's good. Sweet tea is incredible. And they look at me like I'm some antiquated person from the 1960s who wants to discriminate or boycott. And it's still beyond me. How can you spend your money and give it to a place that turns around and uses that to deny us our equality, to keep us from adopting children, to keep us from being married, enjoying those 1,400 rights and benefits that simply come for a straight couple by signing a piece of paper?
Right.
And they'll go and they'll spend it on nuggets, on sweet tea, completely disassociated from the reality that money drives discrimination.
Yeah.
And so this morning, I'm not trying to get you revved up. I'm trying to remind you that as an individual, as a Christ follower, Jesus knew where the money went.
Yeah.
He cared about where it went. That's why he went up there and flipped the table.
Yep, that's exactly right.
That's why he confronted the people who were using money to exploit all of the people coming in for Passover. And he got him lynched.
It did.
So, in loving, in affirming, in pride, we must always be gentle as a dove, right? And wise as a serpent. We've got to be able to think strategically about where are we putting our money, where are we investing our money, and make sure that money's going to affirm and I know I'm going long.
No, you're good.
To
You're good.
affirm and take down the bricks that have been built in systemic homophobia, systemic racism, whatever you want to say. We got to do that. So that's just a challenge there. I have to do that. Like I told you, I don't know who these vendors are. You know, great, they're selling rainbow flags. You think that means they're for us? They're for that green money. All right? So don't go out there and get in a fight with anybody today. But keep in mind, you must be strategic. Because I'm thinking about, brother, what's your name? Matt. Matt, when me and you are long gone, what about our kids? Right? What kind of future are they going to have? What kind of world are they going to have? Are they still going to be struggling like you and I do? Are they still going to have to code switch in certain instances? If y'all don't know what code switching is, it's what we LGBTQ folks or African Americans, it's the vernacular we use when we're around, right? When we're around our community. And we have to switch code when we go into places that are not like us.
Yeah.
Why? To survive.
Yeah.
To keep a job. To keep a home. So, Bob, I'll turn it back to you.
Well, you kind of got me worked up about when you started talking about money a little bit, because we are a church that struggles mightily, and I know there are a lot of folks out there who support the position that we have, but they send their money to those churches that do not, and kind of get me a little worked up there. Yeah, it is. So if you're one of those, if you're sending your money to a church that's not supportive of LGBTQ folks, let me encourage you to reconsider where you're putting your tithes and offerings. I think it makes a difference. Voices like this voice cannot be heard if we have to close the doors and send everybody.
No. This world cannot afford to lose a unity fellowship. That's right.
Yeah.
You got to put your money where your mouth is. And if you can't find good chicken, go to Popeyes. They blow Chick-fil-A out of the water. Okay? They fry with real grease and no homophobia added.
No homophobia.
Okay? But Bob, profound point. If you have money and you say, I just don't know how I can affect, I can't march with you, I can't be as public as I want to be, but you can put your money in a place the difference, give to unity. Give to unity.
No, and it doesn't have to be just us.
Well,
Give it where it
for
makes a
us.
difference.
Where it makes a difference. But
Yeah.
this church is making a difference. Becky?
Yeah, hang on.
I'm just wanting to know if, with all these new things happening about Roe versus Wade, is it going to continue? If it does, what can we do to help? Is there anything we can do to help? Oh, I vote.
Yeah.
I vote, but there's got to be more.
Well, there is more. Number one is the vote. Number one is the
And
vote.
not just vote, but vote local all the way up. It's don't just vote for the president. The president can only do so very little much.
Yeah, you've really got to get out and vote. You got to learn about these candidates. You got to ask hard questions. The question I was asked the other day, because Dominique and I were two of the plaintiffs in the Supreme Court case.
Right.
The news asked me, how do you feel now that Roe versus Wade has been overturned? And then Clarence Thomas made a point to say,
Now we ought to review it.
we need
Yeah.
to review it.
Yeah.
How do you feel? I'm nervous. I'm nervous. Because we built a life with the rights that have been given to us through marriage. We both are our adopted sons' legal fathers because of the ruling of the Supreme Court. Our state would not recognize us both as fathers. So it's not just taking away that right. It completely disintegrates the foundation of equality and justice for LGBTQ plus couples and their children and their children's children. So am I nervous? I'm very nervous. While marching is great and it serves a purpose to rally people, our Amen Corner is exactly right, that we have got to get out and vote from the principalities you live in all the way up. And then you can't just focus on us. If you want people to join you, you better go start helping in other communities too. If there's an African American community that needs fresh groceries, you need to be able to hook them up with a farmer who can provide that. And they're going to remember this individual happens to be gay, but he helped us. I don't want him discriminated against.
Yeah.
So too much of the
When
time,
the Samaritan is in the ditch, they really don't care who's there to pull them out.
they don't care. They're not discriminating against that. The LGBT community has a lot more opportunity than we've taken advantage of to be a witness for love and help to other communities instead of always crying, where are you now for us? Where have we been? Some of the most racist people are in the LGBT community. We've got to face that. And we've got to eradicate it. So all I'm saying is it worries me.
Yeah.
I consider those individuals not my enemies, my adversaries. And I don't know what the future holds. I don't know. But it's very scary. I can understand the outcry from the Roe versus Wade decision, but it feels like a fundamentalist landfall where everything's is starting to crumble from the foundation. So it's very scary.
Yeah, certainly. And although I'm not personally affected by most of that, I feel that crumbling of the foundation as well.
You feel that?
Yeah. I haven't said this today. I do most Pride Sundays, but I recognize my place of privilege. I'm a white, cisgender male with reasonable means. And so I have known almost nothing but privilege my entire life. I don't know what it's like to be black. I don't know what it's like to be gay. I don't know what it's like to be female. I don't know what it's like to be trans, because my whole life has been showered by privilege. I can only imagine if those privileges got yanked. Because it's not really privileges, it's rights. We deserve to be recognized as individuals, as people, as humans, fellow human beings, regardless what labels you may attach to us.
You're exactly right.
Comment or question from the audience or anybody online? Anybody on Zoom? Speak.
There's a lot of LBJ stuff on TV this week because of it being Make Me Month. And one I really stuck in my mind was they were talking to these kids, and a couple of men had adopted this boy. And they asked him what he thought about it. He said, I think it's wonderful. I got 2 daddies.
Yeah.
And some of the other kids said, well, now I want 2 daddies too. And so what's going to happen is people have to start thinking above where they're thinking, get new ideas and bring out new things like that, and people to see, it's not that bad. It's not bad, you got 2 individuals that care for a person. So what, if they're both the same sex,
Yeah.
The kid has to be taken care of,
Right. Yeah. People like to ask what's the LGBTQ agenda, as if there's some agenda going on. As I understand it, the LGBTQ, correct me if I'm wrong, LGBTQ agenda is wake up in the morning, eat breakfast, go to work, come home, go to eat supper, pretty much the same as everybody else's agenda.
Yeah,
live,
pretty much.
be, and survive,
Overthrow the
from one day to
government.
the next.
And raise
Take
a
over the
family.
world. Yeah, we forgot those 2. But no, yeah, the agenda, but it's all in how you frame things, right? And we live in a world where we can twist things and promote things that has nothing to do with the population. And this agenda makes it sound like we're trying to subvert a power.
Right.
And it's a false power. It's a false power. It's run by individuals who have enjoyed privilege their entire lives, and they are not going to let go of that privilege, not without a fight.
Yeah.
Anybody?
Privilege, I'm not seeing anything. Do you see anything, any comments? Anybody else present have a question or a comment, an observation?
I've been looking in between the Bible and other nations and how things come apart. I was reading about an incident like a couple years ago of how they said homosexuality was put in the Bible. No, it's not a Hebrew word. It wasn't put into the Bible until 1945. People want to get deeply into the Bible, they need to read their word and go depth. People just they was adding homosexuality because it's not a Hebrew word, it's not a Jewish word, and it was never qualified anywhere back in history at all. And then, with my pride and agility in the past couple of years, over 8.5 years, with my partner just passing away of a heart attack, I had to speak to family member and on how to love more people and to quality. I called my grandmother one time to tell her about me and my partner, and she called me back crying, telling me I don't hate you. She didn't understand what the LGBT community was, who they were about, and what they were. They were afraid, oh, they're going to catch this, they're going to catch that from us. No, I told them they can't catch it by sitting on the couch by me. They can't catch this, they can't catch that from anybody. That opened their heart when I came out over the telephone, because she didn't answer. I left a long message. Both my aunt, great aunt on my mom's side, and my grandmother opened their hearts because my partner showed them the love like they were more family to him, because his family didn't understand and they didn't want to accept him.
Thank
You
you.
know, we've got a lot to learn
Yeah.
in society, in families, in churches.
And I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else?
Well, 2022, right? Somehow we made it. Or we as a collective, we made it through a pandemic. It ain't gone yet, but we made it this far, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm looking outside, I can't help but look, and I see people in rainbows and scantily clad. I'm assuming they're here for Pride. But life goes on.
Yeah.
Life goes on. And so the question for you and I today, or what I'd like to leave you with in partnership with Bob, is what does being an advocate mean for me? An advocate in 2022, not 1980, not 1990, not 2000, today, 2022. What does being an advocate mean? And if you're LGBTQ+, the question I leave with you is there value in fellowship for you? Because coming to a faith community is not going to save your soul and hand you a ticket to heaven. It's about fellowship. It's about feeling safe. It's about being affirmed. It's about being wanted, valued.
It's about community.
It's about community. and
First thing Jesus did was gather a community of
First
people. And the word church, by the way, you know what that means? Gathering. It's so, we think of it as some fancy word that means buildings and all that, but it doesn't. It means gathering. It means a collection of people. That's what the word means, ecclesia.
That's right. And so that's what I leave with you today. If you think what you've heard this morning is of value, share it. Share it with other people. Share it on media, social media accounts. Share this message because it's going to shine like one candle in a dark stadium. You can't miss it. Share it. That's not to build us up, but that's to leave the light on for the individual out there who is searching today. Mama may have died, Daddy, Papa's dead. I'm on my own. Nobody loves me in this world. They need to know where they can go to simply be loved.
Thank you, Pastor G. Thank you all for participating and gathering with us today. Thank you those who have joined us virtually as well. We're going to go picnic now. So God bless. See you soon, hopefully. Take care.